Hello everyone, this is Shannon for Waffle Flower Crafts. In today's video, we are going to build this really pretty Paris scene with Waffle Flower's Bonjour Stamp Set and also do some no-line coloring with Tombow Dual Brush Pens. I'm going to start today's card with the images. This is the Bonjour Combo set, comes with the Bonjour Stamp Set in the front and the matching dies in the back, all inside this cloud storage bag with a magnetic sheet for the dies to keep them nice and tidy. I'm going to start by stamping the several images from that Bonjour Stamp Set onto some Bristol paper. I'm going to stamp them in a very light color. I'm actually going to use Distress Ink Antique Linen, so I'm going to ink up all those stamps and stamp them. I do stamp them twice just to make them a little bit more bolder, and once I finish pressing this all over, making sure I get a good impression, I'll move on to coloring. So I'm going to start with this little shop here, and when I color with my Tombow Dual Brush Pens, I usually start with the marker direct to paper, and I start coloring in at the darkest point. So I think kind of where the wall meets the roof here, it's going to be kind of in shadow, so that's where I color first. And I do have the colors I'm using on screen so you can follow along. After I color it in, I grab my brush and get it a little bit wet. I have some water actually sprayed down onto my water media mat, and then I kind of move that brush over that ink to activate that ink and then spread it around the surface of the front of this house. I didn't get quite enough coverage, so I scribbled a little bit more of the ink down onto the mat, then picked it up with my brush to color in the whole wall. Now I've grabbed a little bit more of that color and just adding shadows to the side of the house and definitely underneath the window. I'm also going to color her little sweater here, or some of her stripes on her sweater, with some of that pink as well. Now I'm moving on to a terracotta color, again coloring direct to paper with the marker to start with at the darkest point, so kind of where I think these shingles would be in shadow, and then with my damp brush I kind of blend out that transition and kind of move that paint or that ink over the surface of those shingles. Then I scribbled a little more ink down onto my mat, picked it up, just to add shadows on either side of each shingle to really kind of create that illusion of roundness. Now moving on to some of the greenery here, I've started with a kind of light olivey green and again kind of direct to paper, then blended it out, and then I grabbed a kind of much more Kelly green and put it on top of those areas just to kind of get a little different color. Now working on the door, same process. This was a little bit bigger area, so again definitely had to scribble a little bit onto the mat and then pick up that ink to kind of stretch it so it completely covered the door. I'm also going to color her little skirt in with this pretty kind of purpley blue color as well. A very light tan picked out for her skin, and I just kind of colored the edges and then with my brush blended out to the center. Her face, I did go back over with my brush, kind of like her features, her mouth, her nose, her eyes, with a little bit more of that tan color just to kind of make them a little bit more prominent, a little bit more pronounced. Now I'm moving on to my red. I'm going to color the other stripes in her sweater with the red, and as well as her beret with that beautiful red color. Now moving on to a brown for her hair. I again kind of started with the marker direct to paper, blended out, and then I'll take some of that color that I scribbled down onto the mat to kind of add some of that brown to make it darker in areas like behind her head where it would be a little bit darker. Now just quickly coloring in the bread. I also colored in her boots. I'm kind of skipping and jumping around here just so you don't have to see me color everything because it's pretty much the same process over and over again. Now moving on to the Eiffel Tower. I took my marker here and went directly over all the details in my Eiffel Tower, and then with my damp brush I just kind of went over that ink and kind of blended it out. And it's really crazy how the ink will really kind of stick or be more noticeable on those stamped lines, and I really like that look. So it's kind of like not really no line coloring, but I really do like it. And I just finished up with some really light blue for the tablecloths and a couple streaks in the window, and that actually completes all my coloring for this card. I'm now going to move on to creating the background. I have this awesome Cloudscape Panel Die. I love this die. This came out in Waffle Flower's July release, and if there's anything you walk away with from this release, it's this die. It's incredible. So I just die cut an A2 panel of 110 pound white cardstock with this die. I'm going to pop out all the layers here, and I've rearranged it so you can see. So this is supposed to be all kind of clouds in the background, but the one thing I love about this die is I'm actually going to only ink blend the top 3 layers of clouds, or the top 3 sections of the clouds like a cloud. So I'm blending here with just a tiny bit of tumbled glass at the very edge or the bottom edge of these clouds. And this is such a quick and easy way to make a really gorgeous cloud background. Now the last two sections of the clouds here, I'm actually going to turn them into shrubs. And that's why I love this die, because it's just so versatile. You could totally have a full sky background, or you can have some fun and do kind of mix it up and make like shrubs in the background, or you could even like blend it those clouds almost like a sunset. I just think there's so much you could do. So I just blended these shrubs with two distress inks. I started with Mowed Lawn, and then at the bottom portion I blended with Lucky Clover, and just to give a nice little gradation. For this very bottom section, I'm going to use a couple different greens here. I'm starting with Twisted Citron at the top of this section, and at the bottom I'll blend here with Crushed Olive. I'm trying to mimic the colors I used in my no-line coloring or my Tombow Dual Brush Pens. Then I'll go back over that olive because it's just a little too yellow with more of that Twisted Citron, and that really kind of made the perfect color to match my Tombow Dual Brush coloring. Now I'm going to move on to kind of assembling this card. So I have an A2 top folding card base on its side here, and first I'm going to start with the frame from this Cloudscape Panel Die and just use some liquid glue and stick it right down onto the front of the card. And then I'll start just popping in each of these sections of this background, basically like a puzzle, getting a little bit of glue on the back side and then kind of sliding it or popping it into place. Super simple, and it really starts to come together here. I'm just blown away how quick and easy this die makes creating a scene. Typically I have to get out my masks and ink blend and cut paper, but this was just so easy. I loved it. And that's my completed background. I'm now going to stamp my sentiment before I start adhering all of my images that I colored earlier. I just stamped this Bonjour in VersaFine Onyx Black on one of the sections of the clouds. I went ahead and die cut all the images I colored out, and I already arranged them here onto my card front. And now I'm using a couple pieces of painter's tape to kind of hold all these die cuts in place so I can pick them up and start kind of adhering them together, because I definitely spent a lot of time kind of moving things around and getting everything into the perfect place, and I don't want to kind of have to pick everything up and then glue it. So the tape kind of holds it exactly where I want it. Then I put glue on the back side of all those die cuts, press it down, and then carefully remove the painter's tape. And I can do some final adjusting here too, because it is a liquid glue, so that's really nice feature of liquid glue. For this shop and some of the flowers that are in front, I'm going to grab some foam tape here, use it to kind of hold those flower pots in place, but also add a little bit of dimension. I wanted this to kind of pop up a little bit more, and I'm also going to add foam tape to the back side of the girl as well and pop her up and get just a little bit more dimension on the front of this card, and that actually completes the card. And I'll hold the card up to the camera so you guys can get a good look at some of the no-line coloring here, as well as kind of the background, the ink blending on this awesome Cloudscape Die panel. I just love it so much. It's just going to really change how I make my backgrounds or my scenes for my cards. I hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. If you want any more information on the products I use, please visit Waffle Flower, and you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for more creative ideas. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day.